Hello.
Aloha, Jerry. How you doing? Dave Lawrence.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
What's going on, brother?
How's things in paradise?
Awaiting you, my friend.
Yes, well, as you know, Dave, we're big fans.
I know that. It's fine.
Fans of public radio.
We are grateful that you're coming back. And so Australia, it looks like more than just a tour stop in your life, Jerry. How long have you had a place there, and explain developing that connection?
Well, I'm married to an Australian lady. We've been coming professionally since the 70s, but I've been living here for about 5 years off and on. We still have a home in Los Angeles, of course.
And so it's the connection to her that brought you down under to there. And I guess from Australia to a related source, you have an unusual background, coming from a family with a British-born mom, and of course your time spent in the UK as a child, which factors enormously into the band later on. Share some of those earlier details with us, Jerry.
Well, it's something that both Dewey and I shared. We both have English moms. My mom is still with us, fortunately, and lives in the south of England. We just saw her recently. But if you combine that Dewey was actually born in Harrogate, Yorkshire, so he was born in the UK. So basically, before we even got to the music part, we were kind of half and half.
Right.
But if you put into that equation growing up in a service family where you move every 2 or 3 years regardless, it really put us in kind of a unique position and something that we shared together going to the same school in London and stuff. And also, I think, set the groundwork for what we ended up doing. It was not quite the leap to all of a sudden be on planes and flying all over the world and stuff. We had, spent a childhood kind of doing that. So it does widen your vision a little bit, I think, and gives you a bit more of a worldview.
And how about the development of the group, which is, again, something that takes place overseas? Describe how you guys coalesce into doing the music there.
Well, first of all, just by chance, we were at the same high school, which was called London Central, and that's where we met in the late 60s. But it was a fantastic time to be in London. Fortunately, where we met was one of the centers of the music business. London had an incredibly rich musical scene going back to the British invasion and all the fantastic groups from the early 60s. So as a result, it was a real hub throughout Europe, as every one of the major U.S. labels had a very strong presence there. We signed with Warner's UK, but there was also Atlantic and CBS, and all the other majors were very well represented. So it was not quite an isolated, foreign kind of situation. There was a really strong ties with the States and the American music scene. So we were fortunate, and we signed with a lovely label at the time. Warner Brothers was very much a home for great talents like Neil Young and Joni, and was part of a conglomerate with Elektra and Atlantic. So if you took, all three of those labels, it really encompassed some of the greatest music of that era. And so it was really an honor to be a part of that.
The scene over there, you guys come together. What was it that helped influence? I mean, one could even just guess that being overseas would have done it, but what influenced the name Being America?
Well, the story is that it was a way to kind of tell a little bit about ourselves. We were performing in pubs and doing gigs like a lot of other English bands just in London alone, but there were bands from all over the UK that were, on the motorway up and down playing all of these little music venues. And we thought that by calling ourselves that, it would at least be something to separate us from the others a little bit.
Right.
Beyond that, I think that names, it's a quirky thing. Nobody, I think, really dwells on Pink Floyd. What does it really mean? If you're fortunate enough to have some success, the name just kind of segues into just being a representative of what the music is. And in our case, I think that probably happened pretty early on. Good name.
Great name and great story and good understanding of why it would make even more sense to identify these cats playing over in England. And I've got to believe that your own fun time back then also included getting to see some great shows in addition to being on the same bill with some remarkable cats. And I don't expect you to remember them all, but I know there's got to be some highlights that when you think back to those early times, either things you went and saw as a fan or experiences where you were opening for people in your earliest moments as America.
Yeah. Well, both of those things are true, and they kind of blur together a little bit because the time frame was so tight. We finished school in '69, and we were going to see, like all kids of that age were going to see whatever. I remember going to see the James Gang, with Joe Walsh at the Rainbow in London. And Dewey was always, Dewey tells the story of seeing Jimi Hendrix at the Royal Albert Hall, and he saw some of the earliest Zeppelin gigs. But within a year, we were opening for a lot of these bands. We opened for The Who and Elton John. We opened for Pink Floyd when they were performing Adam Hart Mother.
Amazing.
So we were three teenagers on stools, and Pink Floyd had a 90-piece orchestra and choir. So it was just a mind-blowing thing for a teenager. The record came out in the UK first and was a hit there. And so we were added to things like we did Cat Stevens' European tour of 1971. And I remember, we played Vienna and Frankfurt and Munich and stuff, just unbelievable experiences. And, that just started a pattern. I mean, not that we've spent our life opening for other acts, but we ended up doing decades, for example, with our friends, the Beach Boys and stuff. And it's just a wonderful facet of, the good fortune that has come our way.
That's cool that you reference them. I've actually never discussed your 2000 release, Like a Brother, with Robert Lamb of Chicago and Beach Boys' Carl Wilson, which I guess first collaborated on a tune from Robert Lamb's 1999 solo record, In My Head. I guess that's where the trio came together. Can you talk a little bit about getting to do that project?
Yeah, that's true. That's how that happened. First of all, we knew each other very well. And I had worked with Carl for almost 10 years off and on stage, and I had sung on the Holland album quite a bit, and Carl was on a couple of our records. And we knew Robert very well. Robert had toured quite a bit with Chicago, and the Beach Boys had done packages. Anyway, Robert was doing a song of mine for a solo album, and Phil Ramone was producing that album for Robert and said, well, why don't we bring Gerry, and then maybe we bring Carl in as well and do some really nice harmonies on this, which we did. And we had a great time, and we thought, well, geez, this is kind of a no-brainer. We should look into doing some more of this. The hurdle was that all three groups were and are still incredibly busy, so it was hard to find daylight on the schedules between the three. We'd find windows where maybe Robert and I were available, and I could fly into New York, but Carl wasn't there, or vice versa, Carl and Robert, and I couldn't make it. So it took about 6 years off and on, and unfortunately, as you might know, the finale of this project was that Carl was diagnosed with cancer, and we were just about done with the project after all this time, but we put it on hold, and within a year we had lost Carl. So it was a very, very tragic ending, of course, to that.
A very tragic ending, but certainly a testament to the diversity that your talents have offered you, that you were able to have that kind of a release, those kind of cats. And as you said, all of you guys were very, very busy. And was it the same case trying to get your part together for when you were Baldwin and the Whiffles in the 1990 John Waters film Cry Baby alongside Andrew Gold and Timothy B. Schmidt, our recent guest from the Eagles?
Oh, nice. Well, we've lost Andrew, of course, but also very dear friends. I did a lot of vocal sessions through the 80s and 90s, and I didn't make a deal about not talking about it. It just was not an issue. But most projects credit, who did what. And in this case, we were put together. I'd done a lot of sessions with Timothy and Andrew on other projects. We actually did the Chipmunks. I think we were all Chipmunks. At least Andrew was. I'm not sure if Timothy was. So it's just lovely stories about all of these sessions that we would squeeze in between our regular real jobs. And the John Waters project, they needed this doo-wop band, and John Boylan was putting the music together, and so I became Baldwin of Baldwin and the Whiffles. One of the great things about that project was normally you do the music for a movie near the end of the project. Music is kind of added, the songs are
right.
Maybe they're in rough screenings and stuff, but you don't really know what songs are going to be used till later on. In this case, it was basically a musical, and so all of the songs had to be cut ahead of time, and so that the actors could lip sync. It was, of course, one of the earliest Johnny Depp feature films, and it was a fantastic thing because all the music was done ahead of time. I got to go to Baltimore and watch them film it, and watch. It was Norman Mailer's son, Stephen Mailer, I think, played Baldwin, as the character in the movie. And so it was really cool to watch all of these great, as usual with John Waters, unbelievable cast. And it was a great week. I remember hanging in Baltimore. John Waters was just the sweetest guy. He was so great.
That's a very cool story. And as you said, you guys were always so busy, so it was hard to get time to do these kinds of things. And some of that busyness, and I have to credit Steve, my mystery emailer, who gets me all of my historical stuff from the last 50 years in Hawaii. But you've had such a long and illustrious history being busy here, and because your memory is among the best of people that I talk to who have been around as long as you have, Gerry, and every time we talk, you always have your stories are. It's like we're back in 1973, like perhaps in March of 73, when you guys did your first show ever here. It was before a sold-out show at the Blaisdell Arena, and Dewey was 21, you were 20, Dan 22. Opening act was David Blue, accompanied by David Lindley. Anything come to mind?
That's really great. Well, you know what? And full disclosure, I don't really remember too much. I have so many great memories of Blaisdell and HIC and the different names it's been over the decades. I can't think. 73 was probably Hat Trick. I'm trying to think of what we were doing on stage at that time. Hat Trick was a very involved album with lots of orchestration, and I've seen footage from that era where we had mellotrons and a variety of other keyboards and things. What I can remember is we usually ended the tours. Do you happen to know what month it was?
Yes, I certainly do, my brother. It was March 17th of 73.
Wow. Well, normally I would think they were at the end of the summer. I remember a few years, 2 years later, we wrapped up a tour where we were promoting Hearts and Sister Golden Hair from 75, and it actually went to number one while we were staying at the Kahala Hilton at the time, and it went to number one, and we went and played that night, and it was just freshly the brand new number one record in the country. And so things like that really do stick in your memory.
Oh, I bet another one that might stick in your memory. And I think when I was at the other station a decade ago, we talked about this, but that was a long time ago. And that was when you did it was a 2-day music festival at the Diamond Head Crater. And that I'm not sure if that was, I don't think that was what you were, when you were talking about. So it was December 31st, 75, January 1st, 76.
Oh, yeah. No, this was late. This was later. Yeah, that was with Herbie Hancock, an unbelievable collection of artists. I remember it was a New Year's thing at Diamond Head. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, with BTO, Cheech and Chong, Herbie, like you said, Billy Preston with special guest Sly Stone, Seals and Crofts, Tower of Power. 2 stages next to each other, and they had some setup to rotate the equipment, and it didn't really work. All the equipment had to be moved by hand, caused very long delays. America was the last band to perform on the last of the 2 days. Didn't go on until 11:30. When you finished, it was almost 1 in the morning on January 2nd.
Yeah, but we were all in Hawaii, so
exactly.
Could have been pouring.
Do you remember playing at the stadium in 1976?
Yes, I do. We did that with Henry, with Cecilio and Capono.
Exactly.
And I can tell you that was July 5th, 1976.
See?
Because we did a series of 3 stadiums around the bicentennial. We played Oakland Stadium with the Beach Boys and I think Santana on July 2nd. We then came to L.A. and played Anaheim Stadium on the 3rd. And we then flew on the 4th. So we weren't actually playing on the actual birth date. And then we did the Honolulu Stadium on the 5th with Cecilio Capono and I think a few other acts. But those are great. There's a poster that we included in one of our albums. I'm not sure which was taken 2 days earlier at Anaheim Stadium. It's just an amazing shot taken by our friend Henry Diltz.
Yeah, it was Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids was also on that.
Okay.
On that bill. And last but not least, because we could be here all day with all these, because you guys have a huge history with Hawaii, but another interesting one was in September of 1977, you're back at the arena, 2 sold-out shows in one night, and you're playing at 7 o'clock, then you go back on at 10, and your opening act, singer-songwriter Jimmy Webb.
Yeah, God. Jimmy, he's a dear friend. He's the godfather of my first son, Matthew, and I've always stayed in touch with Jimmy, but we've just been spending some time recently. He's written a fantastic book called The Cake and the Rain, he has sworn to me, although I'm not in that one, he says, well, there when I do the second half of my life, But we did a whole summer with Jimmy, and it was, God, just so great. And that was one of those things where they said, well, who do you want to use, as opposed to the label telling you who they want to add to your shows. And I said, well, if it was up to us, pick somebody like Jimmy Webb. And so, what an honor.
Oh, well, I mean, that's funny. That almost, I guess I have to break what I just said, because you also had a great opening act in 78 when you had McGuinn, Clark, and Hillman, 3 original Byrds members opening for you at Andrews Amphitheater. Was that somebody you picked, or was that it just happened that way?
Well, no, that was a whole summer that we did with them, and we knew, we've known all of those guys for quite a while, but knew Roger quite well. And that was a fantastic summer. It was really great. Those guys were a lot of fun, and I'm not sure if that was one of those asylum projects. There was Souther, Hillman, and Puree, too, that was, let's put 3 guys together and maybe collectively. But we had a fantastic time. Roger moved to Florida. I don't see him as much anymore, but as you know, we were fans of the Byrds from day one. I do speak to Crosby fairly regularly. I've stayed in touch with him over the years, and he's a funny guy. I always enjoy our time together.
That was a special summer for you because you ended up flying over to Kauai to get married after the Honolulu concerts, as I recall.
Yes, I did. And also, as you probably know, we did an album on Kauai.
Yep, we've talked about that.
We went down to the Poipu side and we did the Harbor record there. We've actually got a song or 2 that we've resurrected. I don't want to give too much away, but we've put them back in the show from Harbor. So we talk a bit about it. So that'll be nice to bring that one full circle.
We're really looking forward to it. I love going through your history. You've got the kind of memory. Not everybody can do that. That kind of exercise doesn't always work with everybody. And it was a lot of fun to do with you. We're really looking forward to it. We've been stoked to. I've seen you many, many times over the years and gotten to talk to you as well, and always appreciated it. I hope that when you're in town, if there's a way we can just briefly get together with you before the show, and also have Dewey and kind of the 3 of us do a little chit chat for Hawaii Public Radio, it would go a long way. And I just appreciate your time, Gerry.
We'd love to. I just make sure to stay in touch with Rich, and we're there in plenty of time to do something like that. So I'd love to.
That would be great.
We're big supporters.
I know you are, and you're a solid brother.
Nice to hear you again.
You too, brother. I give you a hug, a high five, and thank you for all the great stories today. I super appreciate it. Awesome, Gerry. I'll see you when you get to town. Be safe, and thanks again. I had a lot of fun. Take care.
Take care. Aloha, this is Gerry Beckley with the Group America, and you are right where you should be with my good buddy Dave Lawrence.